Former President Trump is suing CBS News over a 60-minute interview it broadcast with Vice President Harris earlier this month that he and his allies have claimed was edited to cast her in a positive light. The lawsuit, which seeks $10 billion in damages and was filed Thursday in U.S. District Court in the Northern District of Texas, alleges the network engaged in partisan and unlawful acts of election and voter interference through malicious, deceptive, and substantial news distortion. To paper over Kamala's word salad weakness, CBS used its national platform on 60 Minutes to cross the line from the exercise of judgment reporting to the deceitful, deceptive manipulation of news, the lawsuit reads. In a statement to The Hill late Thursday, a spokesperson for the network said the former president's repeated claims against 60 Minutes are false. The interview was not doctored, and 60 Minutes did not hide any part of the vice president's answer to the questions at issue. 60 Minutes fairly presented the interview to inform the viewing audience and not to mislead it, the spokesperson said. The lawsuit Trump has brought today against CBS is completely without merit, and we will vigorously defend against it. Trump and his allies have railed against CBS for weeks over the wide-ranging interview, with Harris pointing to an answer the vice president gave to a question about the war in Gaza that was not included in the full broadcast and instead published by the outlet online. It is standard practice for broadcast outlets to edit questions and answers during interviews with major newsmakers for clarity, accuracy, and time. Trump initially agreed to sit for a similar interview at 60 Minutes. The network said at the time it broadcast a conversation with Harris, but the former president backed out after the program said it would fact-check him. Trump first teased potential lawsuit against CBS earlier this month, saying the network should lose their license and take 60 Minutes off the air. CBS is one of the several mainstream news networks Trump has threatened to use the federal government to crack down on because of coverage that's critical of him. Trump's lawsuit was filed in a federal court in Amarillo, Texas, which guaranteed it will be assigned to U.S. District Judge Matthew Kaczmarek. His single-judge division has become an attractive forum for Republican-led lawsuits challenging Biden administration officials. Kaczmarek, a Trump appointee last year, suspended the federal approval of the pill mifepristone before he was overturned by the Supreme Court, and in 2021 reinstated the Trump remain in Mexico asylum policy. Yeah, at first when I saw this story, I was like, why would... because Trump's mainly known for having ties to New York and Florida. I said, why would he file a lawsuit just period in Texas? But then when they mentioned it was a Trump-appointed judge who's popular with people who just are right-leaning and want to file lawsuits against Biden or any other like left-leaning or supposedly left-leaning outlet, then they'll go to him. It's like, okay, well, now it's all adding up. So it's obvious that a lot of networks do edit their interviews for time. When you air stuff on TV, you have to be able to fit in commercials, and sometimes there's dead air in speaking segments. But what I'm really the most confused by is what does Harris's answer to Gaza have to do with hurting Trump's campaign? One of the few things that they are united on is their support for the Israeli government. Now, Harris tends to be a little bit more critical in the sense that she will say, we need to recognize the dignity of the Palestine. Just she can't fully embrace Netanyahu the way that Trump does, but it still is not some defining issue that if you were to change her answer on it, then all the other things that Trump has been able to lead against her on, like the economy, like immigration, would suddenly be null and void. And also, why the random number of 10 billion? Like, I don't see anywhere in this article where it articulates why the number 10 billion would somehow magically restore any of the supposed damages done to Trump's campaign by this supposedly doctored interview. And really what it is that with his several different lawsuits going around, or rather his dozens and dozens of criminal charges, he's trying to see if he can squeeze some money out of this outlet in the hopes that it might be able to cover that. Because his supporters, whether you can love them all you want, they're not rich and they can't provide financial cover for this guy across four different states and four different trials. So this is one way of trying to see if he can get some of that money before these cases continue to progress. But no, he didn't back out of the CBS interview because there's such an unfair liberal network. CBS is much better than CNN or MSNBC, and people know that. But even if you were to say, "Oh, I'm scared that they're going to ask me tough questions," it's so funny how like I remember when he did the debate with Harris, and then he backed out of the second one, and how he backed out of the RNC debates, um, and it's like I've never seen someone who's applying for a job. You want to be president again, who just casually is like, yeah, I could do this, but I'm not going to go to this forum. I'm not going to go to one of the biggest networks and be on their stuff. And it's really sad because you could see an appearance on something like Joe Rogan, which he did a few days ago, a week ago, and acknowledge where that was part good and something he should go on in terms of it having a big audience. But you're going to deny one of the major networks an interview, one of the major networks that also interviewed your opponent. It's just a really bizarre strategy on his part, and his supporters seem to eat this stuff up. I had some clown in my comment section. Well, it doesn't make any sense for him to do a second debate with Harris if the moderators are going to team up against. It's like, man, just get out of my face. If any Democrat dodged doing interviews and debates as often as Trump does, he would have been called. He or she would have been called a coward like that. Let's not forget when Harris first announced, they were Republicans were criticizing her for not doing interviews. But when Trump backs out of them, hey, fine by them. Rules for thee, but not for me.